miniature armor and weapons made especially for him. Conor believed in contingency. Any plan, no matter how flawless, needed a backup. Gilliman believed his blood father thought this too. Contingency was something Conor and Gilliman's blood father agreed on. Their advice would have been the same. Do not believe in perfection, because it can be taken away. Always have a fallback you can live with. Always know how victory can be achieved in a different way. Always have the practical to compensate for any theoretical. The Imperium of Man was the most perfect vision of unity imaginable. The Emperor and his heirs spent more than 2 centuries making it a possibility. If it failed, was one to simply despair? Did a man collapse and rail at the universe for compromising his plan? Or did he regroup and turn to his contingency? Did he demonstrate to fate that there is always another way? Horus Lupercal, another of the 18 Primarchs, but in Gilliman's opinion far from the best, had been selected as the heir among heirs, and in a miserably short space of time had been found wanting. He had risen in revolt, twisting some other Primarchs against their gene father too. The first Gilliman had known of this sacrilege was when Lorgar's bastards had turned upon the 500 worlds at Calth, and in darkest treachery had shattered that planet. Shameless, atrocious. 2 years had passed, and there was not a second of them when Gilliman had not thought of Lorgar's treachery and, by extension, Horus's. Gilliman would be avenged. It would be a simple revenge, ultimately, the kind of revenge Conor had taught him at the cutting edge of a gladius. There was a new star in heaven tonight. 100 days ago, Gilliman had set the old Kohlgestalt cogitator to alert him to any stellar changes. Gilliman had known what to expect if it worked.
Thanks for the light.
Tonight, he had seen the new star immediately.
Good,
He had been sitting in his chair beside the cogitator, facing the windows, the way his stepfather had passed the long nights.
What's up, inundation? Sitting there listening to an audiobook.
Hope. Gilliman leaned over and pressed the
What am I listening to? I'm listening to
chime. There was a knock at the chamber
Empire. Hold on, let me see. What is it called?
It was Uton.
The Unremembered Empire.
My lord,
Yeah, that's
woman
it.
began. I've already seen it, ma'am, said Gilliman. Uton looked puzzled. The apparition? She asked. Gilliman stood. Begin again, he said.
Oh. Sit
That
here and burn me a
commander
joint.
of the Precental household, had gathered a squad of men from the night watch in the hallway
I smoke a
leading to the
cig first, and I'm
hydroponics
smoking
gallery.
a joint.
By human standards, they were all large,
How you been
powerful
doing?
men, though they seemed like children beside the Primarch. Badorum was a seasoned
my
officer
lighter.
in late middle age. Like his soldiers, he wore steel, silver and grey, with a short cape of cobalt blue. His strap-hung plasma weapon was chromed.
Where's my lighter?
Uton, the chamberlain, a tall, fragile stick figure in a long white gown, led the way, clomping with her staff. Gilliman followed, impatient to arrive, but respectful enough to walk at the old woman's best pace. The approach was dark, as if the lights had been switched off or had failed. The only luminosity came from the lanterns and visor lights of the householders and the faint green glow of the gallery beyond the door. Gilliman could already hear it, the psaltery, a bass psaltery, pealing its long, sad, pure notes into the night air. The echo was pronounced. The hydroponics gallery was a large space, but Gilliman was sure it could not have produced quite that.
Yeah, I'm stuck in the house, man. That's kind of really the only reason I did a live. I was bored. I had shit to do, man. I can't go nowhere. Well, I mean, my truck's heavy as fuck. I can drive around in this shit, but I mean, nobody's doing nothing nowhere. You can't pull up nowhere. The gas stations, It's cars
Only
parked
just summoned,
in
Lord.
gas stations and shit, man, where they
Clenard,
can't move their
you were
vehicles.
here. The soldier
ridiculous,
stepped forward and removed his helm respectfully. We were patrolling, my lord, and approaching this gallery when we
Good
first
with you,
heard the
Mr.
noise.
Montenegro.
Music,
How you doing?
just as now. Clenard, look at me.
Sitting here talking to Inundation about
his eyes to meet the avenging sun.
I'm snowed in my
He
house.
had to tilt his head.
You know, if you're in America, well, I don't know where y'all from, but yeah, in America. Well, no, you from Indiana though.
Yes, my lord.
But yeah, we lose our fucking minds when it get cold in America.
A great figure in black, made
car wrecks and everything.
It stepped out of the shadows and was solid. It was wrapped.
See, I live in
iron,
Tennessee. You could lose your job if you don't go to work. Sometimes it's a right to work state.
It was armor.
So yeah, man. Some people are dealing with that. I work for myself.
How big? Asked Newton. As big, the soldier began. He paused. As big as him, my lady. He gestured down the hallway. Titus Prato had just come into view, escorted by 4
I like the
battle brothers.
Yeah, I like the audio dramas too.
Space Marine of
I like those. They're shorter.
A giant.
Like this one I'm playing right now. This is like 11 hours.
My lord, Prato asked. Can you scan the area? Asked Gilliman. I have done so, but I will again, Prato replied. There is
How much snow y'all got up there, Inundation?
The passive monitors would have triggered long before I arrived. But you hear the music, Titus. I do, my lord. Gilliman reached out his hand. Prato, without hesitation, drew his bolt gun and slapped it into his Primarch waiting arm. Gilliman checked its readiness quickly and turned towards the gallery door. The weapon was a little too small for his hand. It looked like a pistol. My lord, Adorn began, should we not go in before you and... As you were, Commander, said Prato. He did not need to read his master's mind to be sure of the determination of his intent. Gilliman entered the green twilight of the hydroponics gallery. Inside, it was warm and humid. The lights were on some night cycle.
Yeah, I'm listening to Unremembered Empire.
Of the water feeding the tanks.
I got 8 to 10 inches tonight. Damn. Now we ain't got that much. Damn. We got like 3 or 4, but it's frozen solid.
Inside,
so we just got a big, thick, like fucking 3 or 4 inch sheet of ice on all the roads and in the yards.
He had drawn his combat
parking lots and shit. It's fucked up though.
His
Nobody can go anywhere. Everybody's stuck. I just got bored, man, so I just hopped on the live. Just fuck around for a minute.
Shadows parted in front of them, and a figure loomed where no
figure
had been.
That's like Colorado numbers, man. Shit, when I used to live out in Colorado, that's what we get 20 and shit.
Invisible curtain. In the name of
yeah, I like it, man. This is the one I think where Sanguinius gonna show up.
It was real.
Yeah, Sanguinius like shows up.
More particularly, he recognized it. The iron mask, the unmaintained Mark III.
I won't spoil it for nobody.
The insignia of the 4th Legion Astartes. Gilliman knew too well the shuffling, crippled gait that spoke of chronic and unhealing illness. It was worse than when last he had observed it. Warsmith Dantioch.
Oh yeah, very warm.
My honored.
I'm not cutting my heat off.
The Rabus Dantioch of the Iron.
I was out there working on some stuff, man, but it's fucking too cold, man. Freeze your fingers and shit.
In weeks. How can you be here without us knowing of your arrival? Gilliman paused suddenly. Dantioch's greeting.
You said Gilliman's smoking chronic.
Distinct echo.
He's smoking. I hope you're joking.
Gilliman, you are half a segmentum away in the eastern fringes on Sotha. Yes, my lord Gilliman, replied Dantioch.
What are you looking at?
And I still. Chapter 2. Pharos. And the decree was, let light be. And so it was, and it was good. Proscribed creation myth, proto-Catholic teachings, pre-unification. Dantioch, warsmith of the Iron Warriors.
McCray got a lot of. They got a hydroponic planet too. I know.
It was There was no lag or delay.
Oh, shit.
The image and sound of Ultramar's Lord was...
That's what I hate about being snowed in. I'm snowed in with no booze.
It was as though they were...
I got weed, but I ain't got no booze.
Except
That sucks.
no echo accompanied Gilliman's voice, and no fume of breath came from his lips, suggesting that the room he actually occupied was smaller and warmer. "Forgive me, my lord," said Dantioch. He reached out an iron-clad hand and pressed his fingertips against Gilliman's sternum. There was a slight resistance as Dantioch's fingers slipped into Gilliman's form, causing a slight, spreading ripple of light to shimmer his image for a moment. Dantioch withdrew his hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "You seemed so real." "You are on Sotha?" Gilliman asked. "We are communicating at this distance." Dantioch nodded. "I am in a chamber known as Primary Location Alpha, near the top of the Pharos structure. We test-started the system 3 weeks ago, local, and the system has been running for 2 weeks. Since then, I have been attempting to establish communication." Gilliman shook his head, marveling. "We saw your light for the first time tonight," he said. "Roughly when alignment was properly established," Dantioch noted, "which in turn allowed this conversation to take place." "You are like a star, a new star." "I would appreciate any data you can process back to us via this link," Dantioch said. "To understand in more detail how we are received will allow us to fine-tune the connection." "This is technology of a level we can scarcely dream of, Warsmith," said Gilliman. "We did not dream of it," replied Dantioch. "It was dreamed of by beings who came and went long before us. Yet you suspected its worth, imagined its potential, and trusted me to unlock its secrets. This
Cheers,
vision,
Gilliman.
both literal and metaphorical, is
dude is dope, man.
you,
I like Gilliman. I liked him after Fear to Tread.
Sotha was a far-flung world close to the edge of the
I think it's called Fear to No Fear. Yeah, that's the name of it. No Fear.
Farther out than Graia or Thandros.
Fear to Tread, that's the Blood Angels
book. Both the fiefdom of the 500 worlds and the span of all imperial territory.
He beats the shit out of Court Pharaoh.
Warpcraft terms lay the rim of the Ultima Segmentum and the edge of the human galaxy. Past that vast thinning out of stars and systems lay nothing but the black, heatless void of the intergalactic gulf. Sotha was a jewel of a world. One of the few comparable ecosystems discovered so far out in the galactic east. It possessed living oceans and densely forested mountainous land masses. There were lower-level animal forms, avians and insects. Curiously, there were no bureaucrats, nor any obvious trace of attempted Xenos visitation or colonization. Gilliman and the expedition fleets of Ultramar had always considered the world a particular curiosity. If there was one geotype almost guaranteed to have been settled during the outward expansion of the great age of technology, it was the rare and precious Terra-comparable planets. For Sotha to have been overlooked or missed by the great expansionists seemed unlikely, but there was no evidence that any human presence had reached Sotha, not even a colony that had been established and then died out. Then the surveyors learned the truth about Mount Pharos, the tallest of all the peaks in the planet's majestic mountain ranges. Plans for full colonization were put on hold.
Does YouTube care if I play audiobooks on live?
Instead, to be based on Sotha in support of a survey mission of archaeologists and xenoculturists assigned to Mount Pharos. A dedicated company of ultramarines, the 199th, was assigned to Sotha as permanent protection, and the world was given the classification restricted. All that had happened 127 years earlier. Dantioch had been out on the promontory at sunset when the ultramarines of the protection company came to tell him that signs of contact were finally becoming apparent. It was about time. The ancient systems of the Pharos, vast quantum pulse engines of almost inscrutable function,
Okay, cool.
had been running
I won't
for
be
2
on here that
weeks.
long, probably.
Antioch had begun to fear
I say,
that he and the
shit,
men
might
he
fucking
worked with had
few people
entirely
get in here, we'll have a
misconceived the
conversation or
purpose
something.
and use of the artifacts. It was late afternoon,
Okay.
the particular moment when the light above the forests
Creative
and
Commons.
distant sea outside
Alright.
began to
Hey, I
spill
rolled
away,
it.
filling the apertures of the summit behind the promontory with a phantom luminescence. It was the best time to appreciate the sheer magnificence of the structure. "There is a sign at last?" he asked. One of the ultramarines, a sergeant called Arcus, nodded. He was accompanied by 2 young men of the company's scout section. The Ultramarines 199th had made the best of their residency on Sotha by taking pride in their specialist duty. They had adopted the name Aegida, or Shield Company, while operating from the Legion orbital. They had also taken up a symbol as their company icon. Both the scouts wore it on their pauldrons. "There are signs, sir," said Arcus. "Noises in the acoustic chambers." "At last," Antioch said. He limped across the rocky promontory to follow them inside the mountain, every step an effort for his massive iron-framed physique. He no longer cared to disguise the attenuated gasps of pain that movement forced out of him. He had been genetically fabricated to withstand superhuman tolerances, and by the damned Emperor, he was.
Oh man, I love Angel Exterminatus, man.
At the threshold of one of the vast apertures,
yeah, Pearl Robert was
like
interesting,
eye socket in the mountainside,
yeah, he got a lot of
Antioch
personality.
turned back to look at the evening sky. Beyond the high cloud, he could detect the malicious disturbance of the ruin storm. It was easier to see at night,
Fulgrim's a dirty bastard.
but even in daylight hours, the traumatic warp spasms and ripples shimmering through space were visible. The trigger point for the ruin storm had been the attack on Calf 28 months earlier. Its hideous effects had rapidly spread right across the segmentum and had engulfed the 500 worlds of Ultramar. No one knew how far the storm effects went. Some said they had possessed the entire galaxy. What was certainly true was that they had rendered the 500 worlds unnavigable, except for the most high-risk enterprises. Trade and communication had collapsed. Ultramar, as a single and admirable area of governance, was ruined. Furthermore, all interstellar transit between the eastern fringe and the core segmenta and beloved Terra.
Is that right before
the galaxy was, in effect,
was that the Iron Lord, Lord
Iron
Hands
Barabbas
or whatever it is that kicked in? They came in and shot him up.
Was technically a traitor. He was a traitor to the throne and Terra because his legion.
Now I do remember when the part where
with the renegade war master,
they
Horus. Simultaneously,
the Emperor's children start realizing that they get like a joke or whatever from smashing those Eldar statues and shit, and they start freaking out from smashing the Eldar statues, and the Iron Warriors are looking at them like, what the fuck are they doing?
All Iron Warriors, of course, no matter their inclination.
Yeah, it's been about the same amount of time for me, about a year and a half or so. But yeah, that's one of the parts that stood out to me, though, was that,
The comparative
them dudes fucking lost their shit when they realized them Eldar statues would get their ass up, get them that little Slanesh thing. It was getting howled for souls.
In
Eldar
fact, given
souls.
that the morality of the Imperium had already been turned upside down by Horus's revolt, it would seem a waste of the opportunity if the ancient rivalry was not tested by war. For his excellence in siegecraft and his staunch loyalty to the Emperor, Barabbas Antioch had been recruited by the Lords of Ultramar to help them construct
and make some badass
contingency plan, and perhaps
I like the Iron Warriors. They can make some badass Warhammer movies, man. If they ever got into the swing of it and got a little more popular, they can make some badass movies. I'd actually be happy with just a B-movie level, just like on a B-level type movie. You don't even got to be all expensive and blockbuster, expensive build, saying all that shit, man. They ain't got to be none of that. It could actually just be a cheap little straight-to-DVD movie.
Empire like Ultramar lay less in fortifying its physical defenses,
you don't like far
more in strengthening its function and operation. He agreed absolutely with Robute Gilliman. Sotha offered a way in which they might overcome the ruin storm, rather than batten down against its wrath. Dantioch had spent the last 9 months working to that end, unlocking Sotha's mysteries and activating the planet's deep time secrets. The day's ebbing light shone into the aperture in the great coiled chamber. The interior spaces of the Pharos, each one
I'm a
of them cut
GTA
from the
character.
mountain's
Okay,
living
cool.
rock by processes that no one had been able to explain, reminded
Dark,
Dantioch of the
though.
inner spaces of a
Like
great
a video
conch
game
shell.
character.
They were polished.
Any movie's got to
smooth,
be fan made.
curved. There were no straight lines or hard edges.
Also, they actually gonna make it. They're gonna go ahead and make it.
Curved chambers led one into another, sometimes connected by smaller flask chambers or rounded coils of hallway that felt like tubes or blood vessels. Everything was a polished, gleaming black, a surface treatment of the exposed rock that was durable and resistant to scratching or cutting. It was like a black mirror, yet it gave back very little reflection, just the merest shadow, and held very little light, except for when, at the end of each day, the sunset flooded through the mountain top apertures, and a curious golden light dripped and drained down through the Pharos chambers.
Man, I would love to see something like that, though.
Fire running off the polished.
Some of that stuff in these damn books.
The early surveyors,
like
men working in the fleet,
even just some of the old stuff
to expand the realm of the crag.
Yeah, I like these filters, man.
Ancient thief holdings that had been part of the realm before the age of strife. This had always been Konor's dream. Konor had ruled Ultramar from the crag, but his Ultramar was but a shadow, a fraction of the culture that Ultramar had been before the long night. Konor had been
that's what that shit looked like.
Mythical 500 worlds, and after his death, Gilliman had set out to achieve his father's ambition.
Well, damn.
It was while he was rebuilding the 500 worlds and making them the greatest empire in the galactic east that the crusading fleets of terror had reached Macragge, and Gilliman had finally met his
in a rough place on the other side of the city. Not too many people know about.
That the Pharos was an immense structure of Xenos origin had been obvious. That was why Sotha had been restricted and placed under guard while it was thoroughly investigated. Gilliman, so forward-thinking in other ways,
anime a Kefka off of Final Fantasy or something.
By man,
Shit off
especially
Final
those
Fantasy.
that could not be easily reverse-engineered. The Pharos of Sotha was many things. Many possible functions, and Gilliman was cautious. The survey mission was established on the planet.
That's
a planet that otherwise rapidly colonized,
Country
and
Western
a
Inquisitor
founded to support the scientists. This amused Dantioch. The settlers were simple agricultural workers, charged with food production and livestock management.
Kind of cartoony.
They lived simple, pastoral
like Samurai
lives
Jack
on
or
the lower
something.
slopes of the mountain. Forest growth on the slopes was rapid and vital. It had taken several years to clear the entrance apertures just to
Has that vampire or something?
Every summer, the farm workers
they give
came
me
up from
purple
the arable
lipstick. I
fields
can't
in the
rock the
valley below,
lipstick.
bringing their scythes and harvesting hooks, and worked to clear away the year's grass and brush growth, where it had begun to choke and invade the black hawk.
This is how you get killed by the Black Templars right here. You was born looking like this.
Over 100 years, had given rise to
Black Templars gonna come chop your ass up. They'll kill you in about 2 seconds. They see a motherfucker walk out of his house looking like this. Like, oh no, heretic, mutant. You gotta die.
Obsidian apertures as caves to shelter them and their herds from storms.
What is
it
this?
also, long ago, discovered the extraordinary acoustic qualities of the linked chambers and halls, and had taken to playing their pipes and horns and psalteries in the deep caves, creating music of unparalleled.
Man, it's fucking boring. I'm trapped in my house.
From the first
I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling real bad right about now.
Dantioch had understood that the interlinking chambers had not been intended as occupation spaces.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Can't drive nowhere in Nashville, Tennessee right now.
There were often places of near impossible
thanks for the nightmares.
Deep, polished drops, smooth, sheer curves, untenable slopes.
See what else we got up here?
There were no stairs,
a lot of filters,
no measured walkways. In one particular instance, a vast tri-lobed chamber, shaped almost like a stomach, plunged away into a polished tube 700 meters deep, which opened in the ceiling of another vast semi-spherical hall 100 meters high. A long, slow process of construction had been undertaken over the years, establishing self-leveling, prefabricated walkways
this is creepy as shit right
designed
here.
to provide platforms,
Now this is some
ladders,
nightmares
stairs,
right
and
here.
bridges that would allow humans to traverse and explore the almost endless interior
Yeah, that's creepy as
of the
shit.
Pharos. Xenos Inquisitor descended on just such a walkway. The Imperial equipment, solid and steady, locked into place over the rolling, polished curves of the Pharos' chambers, seemed crude by comparison. Treated, unpainted,
you know, a swole ass motherfucker that look like this on real life though.
Stamped with the Imperial Aquila.
Yeah, I know a dude look just like this.
With leaden clatters. When they walked upon the polished black, they made
jacked
only
up.
the softest
Big motherfucker.
sounds. The walkways, stairs, and platforms were also dwarfed by the gloomy chambers they threaded through, and seemed frail by comparison.
Man, I'm bored of this shit. It's terrible. I'm checking out all my filters. This is pretty cool though. If I wasn't bored right now, I wouldn't have found all this shit.
The abyssal plane of primary location Alpha. Twice on the journey, they passed farm workers eating supper and playing their instruments.
Oh yeah, you gotta see that my third eye.
One of the scouts,
kind of gross, that jiggly shit on there.
Shooed them away. The Pharos had been officially out of bounds ever since Dantioch.
The 3 little jiggly things, it's kind of gross.
Deep in the mountain's core, online. They could all hear, or at least
I feel you, man. I'm just like,
throb.
And that's what else to do, man. I was just like, yo, I'm gonna hop online and see if anybody pops up.
Stood in primary location Alpha.
I can see everything. I can see the future, the past, and the present.
That he understood
I better be able to see the present.
Even from the data he had studied before his arrival on Surfer.
Third eyes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The little dingly things is gross.
Primary location Alpha was, he was sure, the center of the entire mechanism. Dantioch found himself referring to it in his notes as the tuning stage, or the sounding board. It was a vast cave of polished black, with a domed ceiling and an almost flat floor. Ghosts walked here. Images of things light years away, drawn into the Pharos by its quantum processes. They were often
creepy as shit.
But always real. It had taken Dantioch 2 weeks and immense astronomical calculations to tune the Pharos as he wanted it. As he walked onto the tuning floor, Dantioch saw Gilliman appear before him, as if in the flesh.
Oh, the Mandalorian.
He had finally tuned the Xenos device to far distant Macragge.
Yeah, I like that show. Yeah, I like that show. This show is sight, man.
My lord, Dantioch said. The Pharos is part of an ancient interstellar navigation system. It is both a beacon and a route finder, and as we just saw, it also permits instantaneous communication across unimaginable distances. You say I speculated, Dantioch, said Gilliman's image.
Hollow
I never had the slightest clue what manner of technology it was.
Boba Fett was a bad motherfucker.
Either, Lord, replied the warsmith.
Sure, pretty cool. I like that.
A principle of quantum entanglement that I believe that, unlike
our
warp technology,
fucking
immaterium to bypass
Frost off Mortal Kombat. Frost, one of them Lin Kui ninjas. Lin Kui.
Network of gateways. I also believe
it's fireball though. I wish I could throw that shit. Oh no, that's kind of like electricity though. Sound waves.
It is an empathic
like an extra Mortal Kombat character.
Adjusted to the needs of
with the blue eyes.
Not the will. I will provide fuller findings later.
Yeah, this shit pretty dope. I didn't know I could put this on the live filters. That shit cool as hell.
Ways?
Whoa.
You said it was part of a network.
Now that's weird.
Nodded. I believe other stations like the
guess what, guys?
Must exist, or once existed, on other worlds throughout the galaxy. Gilliman paused.
Works off the sound waves. Okay, that's dope.
One single beacon, like the Astronomicon. No, Lord.
Yeah, that's cool as hell.
I believe the Pharos and other stations like it once used
see if I cut the volume down.
Of navigational pathways.
Nah, it pulsates. I thought it was sound waves, but nah, it pulsates.
It is
Yeah, it does look
more
like
a lantern than a
it's kind of like
Lord. You
some Zinx type shit. Yeah, it's probably Zinx would talk to you.
Illuminate a site or location for the benefit of range finding. Now I have tuned to McCrag. I can, I believe, light up McCrag as a bright spot that will be visible throughout real space and the warp.
Rubik Marine.
Despite the ruin storm.
This is Sly Marble face right here.
Sofa as a new star in the sky. Yes, my lord.
Yeah, like that. What's that? They got that shit. They got when he's flying through there. He's like,
To hold Ultramar together, to rebuild the fiber, we must restore communication and travel links. We must navigate and reposition. We must pierce and banish this age of darkness. This is the first step towards our survival. This is how we fight back and overthrow Horus and his demon allies. Antioch, I applaud you and thank you for the peerless work you have done.
no new face cream. It works great.
Yet to undertake. My lord, Antioch with difficulty bowed.
Oh, that's cool as fuck.
Warsmith? Yes, my lord.
Oh, yeah, man.
Chapter 3.
See, the first one, that's the one where they, the blood angels, I think, come through.
Us, for it is the
sea,
and the darkness is set
Cyclops,
about us, for it is the darkness. But we will row on, brothers. Backs breaking into each stroke. We will
row this is that race that almost decimated the Dark Angels that they never show. I can't think of what their name is, but it's an old, it's the only Xenos that they talk about, but they never show them. Oh, man, I can't think of how they kicked the shit out of the Dark Angels, I think. Yeah, Beast, man, futuristics.
Had been screaming for months.
Interrex.
Screaming like a
rose with the Interrex.
To the night packs. Their ship
they
was
fuck with
called
Beast, man,
the
everything.
Waning Crescent. Zeta class,
so was it sonar?
a courier ship. It was not the proud warship or long war they might have hoped for, but they were a small company of wolves, and Lehman Russ had no resources to waste.
Oh, no.
Fafnir Bloodbroder
That's
had
not
felt
cool.
his heart swell with pride.
That's just ugly.
Russ had given him a duty. It was a duty.
Retarded doll face or something like that. That's like a Slaneshi type shit right there. That's like one of the like undead Slaneshi motherfucker or something.
Edged expedition of battleships and barges, but 10 wolf brothers on a lowly ship to distant Ultramar.
Cool.
Fafnir had quickened his
I'm trapped in the warp. Help me!
Upon which his duty was laid out, and bowed to the
that's like a motherfucker stuck in a warp rift or something. That's pretty cool, though.
Do this, Lord, he had said. They had set out, sworn and dedicated to what was one of the most shocking duties any of the Legiones Astartes might ever undertake.
Or like that dude Imperex or something. Yo, what up, Jay? Yo, that's one of my MC homies right there, yo, man. Dude got balls, man.
Most of the crew, the human crew, had gone mad.
See, Lord God speaking his powers. Yeah, that motherfucker had that crown of thorns and shit on. Yeah.
The Waning Crescent, aside from 10 warriors of the 6th Legion.
Yeah, man, he got YouTube page too, man. You gotta check this shit out, man. He got bars.
And ceramics. Within a day, the violence of the warp storm had smashed all the ceramics in the
What else we got on here?
The screaming was...
Oh, shit. It was like a biking motherfucker. Yeah, I rode with Lehman Russ and them niggas, man. I rode with Lehman Russ and them. Yeah, I'm the only black motherfucking what book we listening to? It's called
Fafnir had been forced to tie the
hold on, let me pull it up.
To his seat.
Unremembered Empire.
Known as the Axe had stood watch.
Yeah, it's called Unremembered Empire. Warhammer book, Horus Heresy Warhammer book.
Malmor Longreach, spear in
share my screen, that'd be cool as fuck.
Had guarded the defibrillating engines. Shockeye.
Let's talk already.
Goodson,
yeah, I had to have a name like Her name be like James Steel Arm or some shit. You know them crazy ass names they got. Sword Breaker and shit.
had watched the forestation. Nido Knifeson
What
had
else we
watched the
got?
stern quarters. None of them had gone
Okay.
unchallenged.
A toy
The
cat.
broiling warp had squeezed out demon forms, creatures that
Oh,
had
that's some
pierced
cool
the
shit right
screening
there.
and slipped in through the
You
hull
say what?
plates of the ship. The
Inundation.
wolves had
I'm
been
the only black
tasked.
motherfucker.
They had been forced to
That's
draw
right.
down,
See, the only
stand their
black
ground,
space
and
wolf in that
bloody their
motherfucker.
blades to drive the warp
Yeah.
things back.
This is pretty
Malmo
gross
had
looking.
fought 2 nights in the spastic engine.
Damn it, like a mask.
Kieran had lost an arm to a tar-blackened
Yeah, that's
maw
a
that had
Nurgle
swung
all
in from
day.
nowhere.
Yeah, that's a
Biter
Nurgle
Henry
move.
had split a lunging skull in twain with his axe, and had done it every night to such an extent that it was almost a ritual. As the ship's master clock struck 4, the raging skull would appear at the forestation.
I don't know what
and
Fortnite
Biter would
drift
be ready with
means.
his axe
That's
to
some
greet
weird
it
shit
and
right there.
split it. They all had stories, pieces of a saga that none of them would ever live long enough to pass on to a skald for retelling. It was a voyage of the damned. They believed that
Like a
each
kabuki
day
mask
marked
or some
out by
shit.
the increasingly unreliable deck clocks of the battered ship
Yeah,
would
that's
be
weird.
the last. Then their voyage and their saga ended in the most unexpected way. Not in the jaws of the doom wolf or a drench of blood
like
spilled
one
by an
Nurgles,
enemy's
yeah.
blade.
Nurgle moves right there.
No, their saga ended
Like, yeah,
in
you
a
got that
light,
virus now,
in a
man. You got
beacon,
that plague of Nurgle shit.
in hope.
Oh, that's that
Somehow,
Among
during the
Us.
storm crossing,
Yeah, I
they
still
had
ain't
become
played this shit
friends.
yet. I got it
Here
though. I
on
bought this
Cleve
game.
of the 10th Legion Iron Hands, black in his mourning cloak, and Timur Gantulga of the 5th Legion White Scars, pale as tundra frost. Their paths had crossed at Nerix, where Cleve's forces had been caught in flight after the Istvan massacre that had taken his beloved Primarch. A 60-day fight through the asteroid belt had finally ended when the sons of Horus, snapping at Cleve's throat, were driven off by Gantulga's strike force. Word had already
like I said, I got it. I just ain't never. I turned it on for a hot second, maybe 5 minutes. Cut it back off. Had something else to do. I had trouble playing video games.
But Gantulga had found all the confirmation he needed in the sight of 8 warships bearing Horus's mark, hounding a battered barge of the 10th Legion like dogs baiting a wounded bear. The sons of Horus had not gone quietly. Knowing their astropathic death screams would swiftly bring more of their kind, the Iron Hands and White Scars had formed up and made a run for Momed, where further Iron Hands were reported to be mustering. Gantulga had transferred to Cleve's barge to share intelligence data just before the assembled flotilla had entered the warp. Then the storm had struck, and they had been lost. Their crossing had begun. Gantulga did not count the hours or the days. It was fluid to him. Time is merely the distance between
Download
two
The Witcher 3
objects.
again. Oh yeah, man. The Witcher 3 is that
had
shit.
No choice. Settings in his optical implants automatically displayed the track of local time.
Damn.
He would relate the tally to Gantulga, and the White Scar would shrug as if to note that while the data was practically meaningless, he appreciated the sharing. When the death of Ferrus Manus had been authenticated, Cleve had decreed that his companies would observe 10 years of mourning. But as time was meaningless, fluid within the storm, and merely an arbitrary count in the corner of his vision, Cleve had also declared that the mourning would only begin once they were back in real space, within the flow of time as it is understood in the physical universe.
I am Thanos, and I only need one more ring.
Not deliverance or salvation, not to escape the storm, not even to find the enemy and avenge the fallen of his legion. He simply wanted to end the crossing and translate again so that he could reset his counter and begin the morning. That day, just another period marked for convenience on the shipboard watch, for the bucking, bridling ship traveled through the eternal storm blackness of the warp. Cleve found Gantulga in an upper wardroom, teaching Chagorian combat.
Yeah, this definitely some Xeno scum. It's like a towel. It's like a female towel.
Gantulga believed that there might
girl
be strategic
towel.
benefits Marines from having iron hands
Oh,
understand the
that's the
private
motherfucker that been
practical of white
drinking,
scars if they were to fight in close
smoking,
cooperation
and whatever in the
against
fuck
a
else.
remorseless
Too
foe
much.
who
God damn,
otherwise
look at them
knew
eyes.
all imperial codings.
Shit.
The remembrancers were present to learn and then act as tutors for those in Cleve's company prevented from
Yeah,
attending
Xeno
because of
scum
watch
die.
duties. Cleve had requested his remembrancers set aside their original role,
Probably Xeno
a
scum
function
die
that had
too
been
on this one.
established to celebrate the glory of the Great Crusade. Since the treachery, there was nothing pure or worthy to remember.
Yeah,
The
Dragon's
only thing
Dogma was
Cleve felt
good,
worth
man. This shit
commemorating
hard as
was the
fuck, man.
broken
If you
past
run
before the fall.
the only thing I didn't like about Dragon's
Remembrances
Dogma is
become
if you fuck up and run the wrong way, like or go somewhere that you ain't supposed to
that
be,
day,
they'll
which
kill
was
you
just
so
another
fucking
meaningless
fast, man.
mark on Cleve's
I was
stoic
walking and I saw this one guy
and just
standing
another
there, so I started ran up to him. I thought I could talk
would
to
turn
him.
out to be a day
You couldn't talk to him or
marked
nothing.
after all.
Just like
The
7 or
Iron
8
Hands
more
and
wizards and shit come out and
Memorials
start
rose
throwing
as
shit at
Cleve
me and
entered the
murder me.
Gantulga did not. Cleve
Oh yeah,
addressed
this
him
is
directly.
Kermit.
There is a light, he said, a beacon. This
Oh.
I have heard.
Now this is interesting.
We steer towards
Now you
it.
talking about you want to get
I've
on the bad
instructed the
side of
shipmaster,
the
Do we
yeah, if
know
you want to
if
get on the
any
bad
of my
side of the
ships
fucking
are still with
Black
us?
Templars, here you
Asked
go.
Gantulga.
Oh, yes, I want to sign up for the Space Marine program.
Is it the light of terror?
Man, we are
Asked
fucking
Gantulga,
killing dudes.
getting to his feet. Is it the astronomical light of the throne?
Yeah, I dare you to show up as an aspirant to be a Black Templar looking like this.
It seems unlikely.
Yeah, I want
Analytically, it's
to be a
similar,
Black
but not the
Templar.
same. However,
Take
we
him
are
out back
half-blind,
immediately.
and our senses are hardly
Take him
reliable.
out back.
We should
Gut your
steer
ass like a
towards it,
fish.
Gantulga agreed. He took out his long, slightly hooked sword and laid it on the table in front of him. He placed his palms flat on the surface beside it and made a silent oath
Not
of
the
blessing
Smurfs,
to
not
its
Gilliman.
trustworthiness and sharpness.
I'm a Ultramarine.
You draw your sword? Asked Cleve.
Yeah, I know. That's
I am
probably the
a
oldest
hunter,
Warhammer joke in the
replied
fucking
Gantulga.
universe.
So I know how
I mean,
hunters
they the
operate.
Smurfs.
The light may
Comes
be
with
terror.
territory.
It may be some other hope, but it may also be a lure. So let us go to this light, but
Like
let
a
us do
badass
so
child.
armed until we know what it contains. From the heart of the storm they came, over hours, then days, then weeks. Lone ships, wounded vessels, broken flotillas, and piecemeal fleets.
Oh shit!
They were the lost.
No, don't duck me!
and the
Don't
damned,
duck me!
survivors and refugees, men fleeing battles or hunting for them, or simply voyagers seeking shelter
that's
from
cool.
the madness of
I like
the
that.
windstorm. And they came to Macragge.
Some
light
old 80s,
in the darkness.
some old like 1983
Some were ships bringing
bad
much
footage.
needed imports and materials from other
Yeah, I like this.
500
I like this shit right here. This would be good for like a rap video.
Pieces of news.
Yeah, this shit
Many
right
were
here
ships
is
of
like some
Gilliman's own
old
legion,
vintage shit.
storm lost on
Good
their way back
80s.
from the underworld war raging on Calth, or the bitter campaign against the traitor sons that snarled across Ultramar as a whole. Some carried more of the wounded legions, the Iron Hands and Raven Guard, a handful of salamanders. The stories they brought were the bitterest of all. The audience hall is ready for you, Lord, said Uton gently.
I don't even play football.
It was a daily
Sure as hell don't want to be a
the Lord of
football.
Ultramar would personally greet representatives
that fish
of the
eye
ships that the
filter's
light
nice.
had brought to Macragge.
Yeah, and I just want to let them know, man, I will
solace
whoop
and joy
any of them
in
Primarch's
this.
ass.
Sometimes the
Tell any of them
reunion
to
of
come
old
step to
comrades,
Dundada. I'll
or the
fuck
welcoming
you up,
of a
son.
valuable asset.
Fuck you up, son.
There was also grief
Right,
and
yeah,
despair,
you,
however,
motherfucker,
and
Lehman
an
Russ. I'll fuck all
ever-increasing
y'all up. Who
stories
want to
recounting
test?
infamy and
I
loss.
dare you.
Gilliman
Watch
thought
out.
his
Hold me
heart
back.
had been
Hold me back.
hardened by Calth to the point at which it had fused like the heavy metal core of a
like
star, inured to further pain. For a heart can only take a certain measure of pain before it ceases to feel.
Retarded eyes.
He had been wrong.
Hungry eyes.
He was studying a large-scale hololith display of the system's defenses.
Dickhead.
Macragge,
Look, I hate to be a dickhead
defenses,
about
the
this,
disposition of the Ultramar fleet elements,
but
and the newly
dickhead with one
arriving
ball.
masses of ships, the outer weapons platforms and void stations, the star forts,
I know it's a turtle, but they might have to go and take this one off.
hulks,
This
the
looks like a
swings of mines,
gross
the
dick.
mid-system watch stations, and sentry flotillas guarding the man point. The prowling patrols, the patient battle
Oh,
cruisers,
hell
the
no.
automated
This is like a
batteries.
damn hoe.
With dabs of his fingers, he was making adjustments to certain lines and reordering ship
Yeah, the
positions.
banana's cool. Now, I went from being a
Newton
dickhead to
knew
a
this was
banana,
merely
though. So, I
automatic
mean, I don't know if
tinkering,
there's a
the
theme with
distracted
that or
activity of
not.
a mind that barely had to concentrate to supervise such strategic
What
complexity.
is this?
She knew from long
Oh, shit,
experience
turkey.
that Gilliman's mind was elsewhere.
Whoa.
My lord. Gilliman did not look up. 3
Interesting.
dead, he said softly. Lorgar's boasts were true. 3.
Yeah,
My
this is
lord.
weird.
Gilliman shook his head, eyes still on the display. The stories they bring to me, Newton, that Horus or any of
Shit
them
is
should
nuts,
turn
man.
against us, against me, against my father. I cannot
Damn.
begin to process it. My only consolation,
Yeah, that's
my
not.
only consolation at all,
It's not a
as
good
I have
look.
learned through our
It's not a
bitter
good
fight
look.
with Lorgar, is that
Yeah, these
something
filters
has
is nuts,
overtaken
though,
them,
man. I
contaminated
didn't know all these was on
The
here.
war
This is kind of
is in
cool.
their brains. It hardly excuses
Yes,
their
we got-
actions, but it explains them. They are
Oh,
run
shit,
mad
potato
and are
man.
no longer of themselves.
I don't know shit to do with no damn
He looked at the
potatoes. So
elderly chamberlain.
pass on that.
She was upright and
Pass on that
slender,
there, Bubba.
supported by her tall staff. Her short
What is
hair
it?
was as
Character?
glacial as her gown.
Did I
It
already
is
do
a
this
hard
one?
thing to accept, my
Character.
lord, she said. I thought it would be the
Nah,
hardest.
that's dope. I like
Gilliman
that too.
agreed.
Well, the
But what
nose is a little
brothers
too
turned
much, though.
traitor compared to the
But you
death
know,
of 3 loyal sons.
I seen her walking.
The survivors
I had to get
cannot
her number.
refute it. Ferris is dead.
Yeah, it's like some
Corex,
rap video
Vulcan,
shit.
loyal
What's
all,
up?
and dead.
What's up?
Then, from the mouths of others, this news from Prospero. Magnus defying our
Hey, man,
father
I'm
so
stuck in my
much
motherfucking
that they shut
house.
the
I'm gonna
damn
do
walls
something,
upon
man.
him.
Fuck.
And now we hear from the foul
I
system
gotta do something.
confirmation that
Say,
Perturabo has indeed
I've been in the
betrayed
house
us.
about
He rose to his feet.
shit. I've been in this motherfucking
What
house
else, I
about
wonder? Is terror already burning? Is my father
over 24
already
hours
dead?
straight.
If
About
half
like
of my
38
brothers have turned to
hours,
follow Horus's
42
treachery,
hours,
then
damn
who
near not
remains?
quite 2
3 of
days.
those
You
who
know what I'm
might
saying? I was
be
over my
counted
girlfriend's
loyal are
house all
already
weekend
dead.
when it first
Who else?
happened.
Where is the
But
card? Does Dawn
now this
burn
shit is
along
just
with
like
terror?
out of hand. You can't even go
Sanguinius and
nowhere.
his legion are said to be
I
lost.
think I already did
The
this
lion
one.
has gone
No, this
into
is
the
a different
dark.
one.
Have the traitors hunted down the Wolf King
Shit,
and
I'm a
torn
bad
him to
guy.
shreds? Am I alone now?
Yeah, that's cool.
My
Alright.
lord, you...
Let's see.
Gilliman held up his hand. I am just
Nah, it's
thinking
not
out
cool.
loud, man. I will
No
be
girls.
composed by the time I reach the hall. You know I will.
Let's see.
She nodded.
It's John Wick.
All I can count upon
Nah, that ain't John
is
Wick.
what I
So
know
what you
as
call it?
solid fact,
Shit.
said Gilliman. The crack
Inquisitor
still stands.
Texas.
My legion still stands.
Inquisitor Texas.
While those 2
I know a
facts
goddamn heretic
remain.
when I see one, motherfucker. I
He pulled
dare
the
your
mantle
little
around
ass to
his
bring your
broad
ass
arm
over
and
here
shoulders
again. I bet
and
you I
fixed
grab
the
you, little
clasp at his
fucker.
throat.
God
He was
damn it,
wearing
this
the
is Texas.
ceremonial
We don't
version
play
of his
down here,
ferocious
Bubba.
clawed war gear.
Inquisition to
and
run up
carried
in
no
that
weapons.
ass.
For his daily
No
custom
lube.
of greeting those coming to his light out of the
Yeah, that's some
storm,
Texas
he
shit
carried
too. Them
no
motherfuckers say I
personal
kind of
weapons.
fucked that shit down now.
Newton watched her beloved lord fix the mantle.
Let's see,
He looked more than ever like a monarch.
what else we got?
Somehow the very lack of weapons
I think that's
made
it.
him seem more powerful.
Where are the filters?
We are
Let's see,
all
what is
we
this
can
shit?
count on, Gilliman said.
This
The
is
time has
weird.
long passed coming. We must
Oh
declare.
yeah,
We
so now
cannot
I'm a
afford to
gangster rapper
lose
and
any
shit.
more time. We
Yeah,
cannot
I'm
afford
tatted
to
up.
wait to hear
This
that
really ain't
terror
enough
endures
though. Like they
all
get
my
more
father
attached than
yet
this on their
breathes.
face now.
For the sake of
I
mankind,
think it's like
as
standard
my father would
rule.
have wished it, the Imperium
Motherfucker have face
begins
tattoo to
again.
rap and shit now. I'm an old school rapper, you know what I'm saying?
He walked towards the chamber.
Alright man, take it easy, bro.
And I will personally kill any bastard who tries to stop me.
Be safe,
Chapter
Austin
4.
Montenegro.
In the hall of the Lord of Ultramar. Never stand between a predator and its quarry, or between a king and his throne.
Well, I just want you to know, put Jesus in your life.
No one kneels here.
Yeah, it's like one of them
as he
Christian,
strode into the audience
it's
hall.
like one of them Christian
But everyone
evangelists,
was
like
already
commercials, you know.
The hall
We just want to let you know that there's nothing
ornately
wrong
wrought
with
in
keeping
silver
your
and gold.
virginity.
The soaring roof
I'm
supported by
63 and I'm
1,000
still a
columns
virgin.
with petal capitals.
Alright, man, be safe.
Across the broad floor of black and white mosaic tiles, hundreds of visitors knelt and bowed their heads. Nearly 2/3 of them were Space
They got a
Marines
bunch
of
of
the
these.
Legions. No one bows here, Gilliman said.
No one
You have
bows
come to
here.
the crag, and you are welcome here.
Yo, this is
Let
dope
me
right
greet
here. I
you.
like this shit.
Flanked
You gotta
by
be
the
closer
imposing
here to the
cataphractic
screen, though.
terminators of his Invictus bodyguard, Gilliman
Yeah.
approached the nearest group. He raised the leader up, his hands clasping the
Yeah.
warrior's
And I'm
shoulders.
stoned, so this looks real cool.
Name yourself, he said. Verano Ebb, Captain. Silent Squad, Raven Guard.
Speaking
The
of
man
stone,
replied. Your loss is my loss, Captain, said Gilliman. And your hope is my hope, Ebb replied. I pledge my force to you, Lord. I ask nothing but the opportunity to stand with Ultramar and kill murderers. And I'd ask nothing else of you. Your place is here, Verano. Welcome. Verano nodded a half bow and gestured to the squads nearby. Sardan Karashisan, Iron Hands, and all of his kinsmen that could be rallied. Beside him, Zytos of the Salamanders and his brothers.
yeah, I like this
Gilliman
shit, man.
replied.
It's cool. I didn't want to leave it on this
You
motherfucker right
pledge
there.
as Verano pledges, he asked. Karashisan was a flesh-spare creature in proud black and
See, I
white
might start
clothing.
using this one on the
He left
regular,
his
just when I
visor
do
in place,
videos, period. Shit, I
undoubtedly
like
because
that.
he had little organic face left beneath it. The visor was his face.
Yeah.
The lenses
Yeah, I
of
could
his
drop some
helmet
bars to
slits
this shit.
glittered
Put a beat
red.
on and shit.
I am
yeah.
Lord, he replied. I will
Yeah,
stand
have
with any who
freestyle
stand
session
against
a couple
Horus.
times on here, a few times.
Zytos had unclamped the helm of his green armor and stood with it under his left arm. His skin was
Good enough
almost
people
as
here
dark
have
as
type
the
in
black
words and
finish
shit. I
of
put them together.
Karashisan's
I can
ivory.
spit like that too.
His
Off the
eyes
dome.
shone unnaturally
That's
brightly, as brightly
Kinda
as the
chill,
photo-enhanced lenses of the Iron Hands warrior.
See what it is.
We mourn the loss of our brothers, the Iron Hands.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
the
where I need
Raven
to be
Guard.
at right now. Said it's cold ass fucking Tennessee.
And we are bowed and bloodied. But the 18th Legion Salamanders are not in mourning. We have resolved to remain steadfast and to trust that our Primarch, your brother, has
it's like a light
survived.
Sophia or some
Until we
shit.
see proof, we will not mourn. Is this false hope, Zytos? Gilliman asked. It is pragmatism, Lord.
Rock and roll's
It
party
might
is
be
the
argued that the
weekend.
pragmatic approach will be to accept the worst and move on.
Blood, that's some blood shit.
Hope
Oh, but it's got the
can
blue
be a
stripes in it, so I guess it's not blood and
Hope
crip or whatever.
can be a weapon too, said the Salamander. Just because we will not mourn, it does not follow that we will not fight.
Okay.
We will pledge to you and
Well,
make
that's
war
cool if I
at
was
your
trying to talk
side,
sweet to a
and
girl or
our
some
fighting
shit.
shout will be, Vulcan lives. Your word is our command, my lord, until the day our battle cry is proven true. Gilliman moved on to the next group, a huddle of imperial fists led by a hulking giant. The man had been mauled by war and had refused all except the most basic medical stabilization. One arm was truncated and looked as though it had been gnawed off. Alexis Pollux, he began, captain of the 405th Company, and I know you, Alexis, said Gilliman.
I know
I'm flattered, my lord. I was not sure you would remember. I make a point of remembering all the officers my brothers regard as exceptional. I have read your report. The engagement in the FAL system.
There you got
It was a bloody matter, Lord. You displayed brilliant strategic thinking. The Iron Warriors had you outnumbered and outgunned.
What's up, yo?
Pollux made
I can't have my shoulders, goddammit.
You escaped in a captured ship, the Contrador.
Yeah, what's up, y'all?
It was not an escape. It was an exit, Lord.
Pretty good audio book
our
right
Primarch
here.
had signaled our immediate return to Terra.
Wow.
We do not disobey orders. Despite the losses you were forced to suffer by disengaging. I regret the losses, Pollux said. More than that, I regret not finishing the job.
These
My
damn filters are
retribution
stupid.
fleet had him, Lord. We were close to killing the bastard. There was silence in the hall. Traitor or not, no one was yet used to hearing one of the Emperor's sons referred to with such disdain.
Still, color.
Perturabo is my brother.
Find the face.
Apologies, my lord, said
Clear
Pollux.
skin.
I did not mean.
Okay.
He is also
My
a
face
thrice
wasn't fucked
damned
up anyway.
bastard,
Fuck
said Gilliman.
y'all.
Do
I
not
got
guard
clear
your
skin.
words on
Hold
my
up. Let me
account.
take it out.
Alexis, I would have you
Yeah,
do
my
2
skin ain't
things.
fucked up. My
First,
skin is
accept the
straight.
medical
Hold
provision
up.
we can
Clear
offer you here,
skin.
so that you may be restored.
Nah,
to youth.
bitch, y'all just changed
Second,
the color.
Thus restored,
Hey, that's a
stand
fake
with
ass,
me and finish the job you started.
Yeah, fuck that. That's a fake one.
Pollux
It's my
hesitated.
clear skin. Bitch,
Then
my
nodded.
skin already clear, ho.
I accept both, my lord, he said, but conditionally. I have orders to return to Terra, and I will not disobey them. There is no route to Terra now, said Gilliman. Terra may no longer exist.
What is this?
You think the throne world has fallen?
Oh,
asked Pollux.
shit.
I am sure it is the War Master's primary target.
Now, this is pretty fucking
Then all the
cool
more
right
reason
here.
why we
This
should
is a
rally,
welcome
rearm, and move
to
en
the
masse
war.
to Terra, Pollux declared.
I
How
can't
long
think
were
of the
you
name of
lost in the
the,
storm after Foul, Alexis? Gilliman asked. I am telling you, there is no route to Terra. There is only one light in the darkness. We have no choice but to fortify and consolidate here.
shit is kind of dope,
Besides,
though.
I feel I have the authority to countermand your orders.
No, it'd be like the men,
Alexis.
what's it, the men of iron
I
or some
have
shit,
seen
man. It'd be
your
like, just like the leader of the
Until
men of
someone
iron.
arrives who
or something.
outranks me, I have command. I intend to use it. We must save the Imperium.
Yeah.
Speculation and indecision are not useful traits at this
I'm
time.
trying to think of a chaos guy. I was like, nah, this is more like some Mechanicum or the Men of Iron or some shit like. It's a man of iron that was stuck on an old black ship and nobody ever found him. This motherfucker.
What are you
He'll
doing?
make up some crazy head cannon
I am securing
some of these
500
filters.
worlds.
That's just cool though.
I am
fucks with this
anchoring
one.
what remains of the Imperium on the crack. We have a beacon, some security of transit, and the possibility of proper recomposition. For all intents and purposes, this is the Imperium.
Right.
Which makes you what? Asked Pollux. Our Emperor?
Right.
I do not presume
Whoa.
to inherit anything.
Another chick one.
Recoiling very slightly.
Alright.
Like Zytos, I will wait for proof of life before I take any drastic measures.
I like that one. That was
My
cool.
father is dead, and I am the last loyal Primarch alive. Then yes, I am
Simple glasses.
Imperium.
I don't know, I think mine.
If those are the circumstances, I will follow you, said Pollux. But I caution you that until we know, you are familiar, I'm sure, said Gilliman, with the Ultramarines' concepts of theoretical and practical. Yes, Lord.
As opposed to
everything is theoretical, Alexis. The rest of the Imperium, the security of Terra, the survival of my father.
Work better without him,
practical. It's the only thing we know we have, and at such a time of extremity, it's the only foundation I know we can depend on. Alexis Pollux looked as though he had much more to say on the subject. He held Gilliman's gaze and nodded. Practical solutions are what matter now, he said.
Yeah, that's just weird.
Fix me, and I will fight at your command. I will fight at the very least to learn more of what is practical. Thank you, Alexis, said Gilliman. I welcome whatever expertise you and your brothers can offer in the matter of improved fortification and defense. The Imperial fists have long been renowned for... He stopped. He had become aware of the quiet, steady scrape of a whetstone against a blade. Nearby, another Iron Hands officer waited with his men and a formation of white scars for their opportunity to greet the
fake filter.
Gilliman clapped Pollux reassuringly on his sound shoulder and moved towards them. They seemed to be the origin
of his fucking cool.
Here and Cleve of the Iron Hands, said Cleve, bowing. He and his men were shrouded from head to foot in black
what's good, y'all? I was just chilling, man, with the magical butterflies and shit. You know, just doing my thing. You know how I kicks it.
I am Gantulga, said the White Scars leader, with more of a snap of
That's like you're in a good part of the warp. You know, so they said he got little spots that are real nice in the warp. It's like this is one of them.
Welcome both.
You know, in a chill spot in the warp.
Cleve's hands.
He said the mushrooms and kicked in.
The storm.
Yeah, I like that.
You were several ships together, Cleve. A White Scar strike force and my own barge, Lord, answered Cleve. Most of us made it through the turmoil in formation. 2 vessels were lost.
The hell is going on with
you come to me with blades drawn. Gilliman asked the White Scar.
Yeah. This is a good way to get you sitting there and you look normal at first,
said Gantulga, offering it to Gilliman.
You know what I'm saying? Then you
Did
start
not know what was
you in
Lord
the battle
of
tank with
so I kept
Black
one
Templars, and you look
empty
normal, and then all of a
and
sudden
the
you like
sword What do you think?
yeah,
of the
Black
light
Templars gonna kill
now?
your ass.
Gilliman
This is
asked.
another good way to get murdered by the Black
I like
Templars.
it well enough. said
They are not
Gantulga.
having it.
It is not
You are
the
different in
trap, I
any
fear,
way.
but I marked your
You know you're
words
getting
to
killed
me
for this
with your
shit.
fist. The actions of
This guy,
Horus. He said the name like a snake.
Yeah, they gonna hide him. They'll hide him in the underground dungeon somewhere.
Horus
Probably got big old muscles.
Heresy, I would say, said Gilliman. It was treachery at first, to turn against brothers, to kill for personal advancement and power, but we have seen them.
Crazy
how their
shit. I'm
minds
fucking
and
with this one. I'm
bodies
actually
have
still
been
kind of listening to
their
the
very
book.
belief systems have been warped. This is no longer Horus's treachery, it is his heresy. Gantulga nodded. Heresy comes in many forms, he said. It can be blatant, like the one which now tears down the stars, but it can be subtle too, accidental. To make example, the building of a new imperium when the old one is not yet pronounced dead. Gilliman's smile was as bright and sharp as the White Scar's blade.
It's cool, inundation.
I am not building my own imperium, Captain. I am preserving what's left of the original. With his free hand, the White Scar
this is the greatest shit ever. If you ever get the munchies, man,
then
these
I
are like
would
the greatest
make
shits in the
sure
world.
of your purpose, Lord of Ultramar, he said. He sheathed his
Ferraro Rocher.
With that blade drawn, said Gilliman, I thought you scars were preparing impatiently for war.
Best shit ever.
They could still hear the scraping of the whetstone. It was coming from
not
behind.
cheap, but you can find them cheap.
No, Lord, said
If
Gilliman.
you go to Walgreens, they're
That would
high
be the
as fuck.
wolves.
If you go
The men with
gas station,
got
something you
Tulgas
might
to
be
the side,
catching
and the pack of
by
space
$1 less.
was revealed. They crouched rather than bowed or knelt, hunched and huddled in their armor and pelts upon the black and white paving. One was sharpening his war axe with long steady strokes of the honing flat. All of them had removed their helms, but they still wore their tight leatherwork hoods and masks, fright masks curled in perpetual snarls, worked with figures and spirals. Their eyes shone yellow. Fenris Yolder, said Gilliman. You are far from home. Their leader rose out of his squat, unwrapping the fur cloak he had gathered around his forearms and allowing it to fall loose. Not your home, Jarl Gilliman, he said. Let me know you, said Gilliman. Fafner Bloodbrother, said the wolf.
Well,
and my pack.
This is pretty awful.
10 of you. A squad. A pack. In fealty to Sesk Company of the Rout of the Vilka Fenrica. Gilliman glanced at the warrior sharpening the axe. Apart from
I just had this for all my lives.
Had risen or shown any deference.
Well, what's up, y'all?
Looks sharp enough to me, brother.
It's the dog. Coming back to talk to y'all about some more Warhammer.
The man replied without looking up. Bo Soren, Fafner growled, ask forgiveness for your tongue. The wolf looked up at Gilliman. He bared his teeth. I recognize my failing and will be sure to correct it.
Borderline creepy.
Fafner looked at Gilliman. Bo Soren can be insolent, he said, unapologetically.
Everybody likes my sweater.
Bo Soren is a space wolf, said Gilliman. You make a good point, Jarl, said Fafner.
What's up, kitty cat?
Of all today's visitors, you intrigue me most. Are we not welcome to your hall, Jarl Gilliman?
Thinks I have some food
another of the men. Hush your noise, Herrick, said Fafner. Writer Herrick let out a low, bubbling
This is kind of weird.
You are all welcome.
Yeah, this is down there. Probably have some people that got like vertigo and shit throwing up.
Everyone else
I'm trying to talk to people and move around
from the flight data of your
vessel. Doing stuff like I'm doing it too much, but it's just me doing it one time, but like I'm doing it 2 or 3 times.
It was.
Yeah, this will fuck somebody
We
here.
rode out the storm to get here.
Yeah, man, I
said
get that
Biter
drip.
Harrigan.
Yeah, I got that drip.
We have a duty here, added
Hell
Bosoren.
no.
A duty, echoed Gilliman. Bosoren has a big mouth, growled
How
Fafnir.
y'all doing out there?
Necessarily, for
It's
he
your
has a
boy.
great many
It's
teeth
your good
to
old
pick
boy.
into,
You know
said
me.
Gilliman.
Yeah, they call
What
me
is your duty,
Jasper.
pack
I'm
leader?
Jasper. That's right.
Our
I'm an
duty
inquisitor
is
down
what
here in
our duty
Nashville,
has always
Tennessee.
been, to do
I've
what
been
others
inquisitor
will
for
not,
14
to do the
years. And I'm
unthinkable.
proud of
If
what
the
I do for myself
unthinkable
and my
must be
country
thought,
and my inquisition.
your reputation as
Now,
the
if I
sanction
catch your
is
little
well
mutant
known,
ass running around here after
and
7
perhaps
o'clock tonight,
deserved.
putting up a goddamn
All
gun, I'm
serve
going to have to
according
kill
to
you.
our courage.
I don't play down here, boy.
Words serve beyond that.
Never
We are
have,
the
never will, never
executioner's
did.
sons. Who have you come to execute, Fafnir?
That's right, boy.
Fafnir
Call me
hesitated.
Inquisitor
He reached under
Jasper.
his pelt and produced a sheet
I was
of
born and
parchment.
raised in a little town
I see no
called
point hiding,
Hohenwald, in
he
little
said,
Hohenwald
holding the
County.
document out.
Them
Read
boys
for
out there, them
yourself,
boys is
young
wild.
Gilliman.
We take them goddamn
No.
mutants and
Tell me in
tie
your
them
own
to a
words.
cow and light the cow on fire.
Fafnir
Cow
took
go
the
running
parchment
around
and studied
dragging the
it.
mutant. You ought to see it. Hell, we had a humdinger of a time.
See the seal of the Wolf King,
Goddamn.
and beside it the sigil
God
of
bless
Malcolm.
America.
Know where this instruction comes from and the authority it contains.
I like that little face. This is stupid,
Gilliman
man.
took the document, unfolded it to the studied marks. Authenticate it if you must, said
His
Fafnir.
little retarded face.
I don't have to.
That's what all these
This is
damn
weird.
chihuahuas on this motherfucker.
You
Like
heard
that.
the fate that
What is
befell
this?
Prospero?
Okay, that's my face.
Asked the pack leader.
I don't see nothing
Wolves were
happening.
unleashed to issue sanction to Magnus.
Yeah, there ain't nothing happening
Not
with this
so
one.
undeserved.
But some of these little dog
reputation
ones they
at
got.
all.
I don't know.
Eh?
This is crazy.
Go on.
Funny
Fafnir
face.
paused. In the eye
Grinch.
slots of his straight,
I look like I really know Kung Fu.
his golden eyes.
I kick you in your ass. I
Twice.
kick you in your ass so fast. You have no
One
idea what I
can
do to you.
More.
Damn, that was
can fall.
racist. I'm sorry, y'all.
More have
My bad.
fallen.
This is from all the Kung Fu
Half
movies I've
have
seen and shit.
fallen.
This is, I couldn't help
It
myself.
has been decreed that the
Well, I
company of
apologize.
wolves
I'm
be
sorry.
sent to the
Oh,
hot
shit, I got
side of
myself.
every
I'm
one
gonna get
of the
flagged on
Emperor's
fucking
sons
YouTube. My first got
to
Now,
watch
if I get flagged, I got flagged Major Kill
What?
first because he stay doing shit like that.
for
But
signs of treachery, of heresy,
yeah.
and if such signs become
Like,
visible,
Hadouken.
then we are to act.
What the hell is this?
Act.
Is that a chick?
asked Gilliman. You're saying that you are
Oh,
here
that's
to watch
dope
me,
though.
to shadow me,
That's simple.
and if you perceive my actions to be
That's
in any way
fresh.
untoward, what? You are authorized to enact
Yeah, that shit
sanction.
dope right there. Like that's some shit.
By the sigil
I leave that on just
so
like on the regular.
authorized.
Like, hell yeah, that'd be my like go to. I
You
like what it's
would
kind of Sophia.
cut my
Got a little
thread.
Sophia thing going with it.
If need
Damn, man, I need to fucking be charging Snapchat, man. I'm on here fucking. I'm basically doing a big long fucking commercial of that shit. I'm bored though. It's fun.
Gilliman raised his hand.
Yeah, these motherfuckers need to throw me a check right quick, dude. Calling Snapchat. We done went through all this shit and did a review. They owe you a check too, inundation. You throw them your information.
Do you really think that your
Yeah, I like this. This is like real chill, man. This actually like matches me. Yeah, it's like a laid back vibe. Cut my music on.
Jarl Gilliman, and your prowess is the stuff of Saga. But we have our duty, and we would try. If you were, say,
that's
without
terrible.
your
That's
body
god awful.
and cornered in a room,
Yeah, I'm just trying to step my quality up, you know.
Fafnir, then you
that's
would
pretty
be
bad.
cornered in a room with me.
That's the old school.
Fafnir
What's up,
shrugged
kitty?
again.
What's up, kitty?
We are the executioner's sons, Jarl. Even if you took us all, I doubt you'd leave the room whole. Gilliman glanced at a nearby
It's like that damn silhouette challenge shit.
Find them somewhere to sleep. Your hearth will do, said Fafnir.
Yeah, we gotta go
Then
collect.
show them to my hearth.
Yeah, that Rabute Gilliman does the silhouette challenge.
The light of the Pharos.
That'll be some funny ass shit. That was what I titled my first. I think that was the title of my first. Yeah, Rabute Gilliman does the silhouette challenge.
To the heart of Ultramar. Not a storm-lost ship or a bedraggled convoy, not a broken battle barge.
That would be a good one too, especially for like wardrobe and shit. Because I ain't doing no professional productions over here, or nothing. So if I
It
got on
brought
my
a
fucking
flash high in the
same
warm
work shirt from
skies
yesterday, I
above
don't get a bunch of
McBride's
comments like,
a
"Oh man, you got on
flash,
the
and then
same shirt,
an
man. You
object
broke."
falling like a
Yeah, I'm
stone,
broke.
streaming out a tail of fire
Shit.
as it scored through the atmosphere.
They be doing people like that too, man. I had a buddy
Gilliman
of mine
left his
YouTubes
guests
and
behind,
tries to,
walking
but
back
he's
to
like,
the
yeah,
door
man.
of
They
the
be like,
audience
why you
hall
got the
with his
same
Invictus Guard
shirt on
and
and
youth
shit?
was
Motherfuckers be
assigned.
noticing shit. They be like, damn.
Titus Praetor was waiting for him.
Yeah, no, this ain't
The
no professional
wolves aren't
production over here.
lying,
I get a wardrobe
Praetor
budget. Hey, I be
said.
fresh
I didn't
every
think they were,
motherfucking day.
said Gilliman.
I be in a
Should
different
I,
color jogging
Praetor
suit
began,
every day.
watch
Like,
them,
no, I be in a
Titus?
hoodie. Oh no, I be in all
Guard the
kind of
guard
shit, man. I
dogs.
got all kind of flavor.
I urge caution, my lord, said
So
Praetor.
that's
The wolves are mercurial
yeah,
beasts
moose
at the best
nose.
of times, unpredictable and quick to find their temper.
Shit.
It is their asset
That's
in
that
battle
dude off
that
of
it
that
is not
movie,
suited to
man.
the realm of the court.
Damn. I
They
can't
are
think of the
tired,
movie, man,
and
but
they
it's
have
a dude that
endured
looked like
much.
this in
They
one
are
of the
living
movies.
on their nerve ends.
Shit.
I
Man.
read this in them.
I really think you need to
You
give me
don't
my
need
fucking
to have
money.
the sight
You and
to
me
read
gonna
it,
have a real
muttered
problem.
Newton, casting a disapproving
Yeah.
glance over her shoulder in the direction
That's
of
some
the
depressing
Fenrir
shit
huddle.
right there.
And they reek
God
like
damn, that's Diesel,
enough,
man. That is Diesel. That's a
Fafner
dollar. That's
seemed
a
an
camel.
honest man, straightforward.
Man,
He made
that's,
no attempt to hide his
God
duty
damn, that's
or the
about
egregious
6
burden of
inches,
it.
man. That's ridiculous.
Nonetheless, I urge caution, my lord, said
Man,
Praetor.
fuck that.
Precisely because of that.
Fish
He
eye.
is like an open book. He is determined to perform his duty, even though he knows it is a
Yeah, I
thankless
rode the
task.
fish eye.
He does not want to make an error.
Report live from the
He is
fish
aware
eye
that the
can.
best of us have made many
Boots
errors so
Gilliman.
far, not seeing the truth
And
behind the
Sanguinius.
traitors' masks before it is too
We
late.
smoking
Expecting the
on, what they
best
call
because we
them,
trust they are our
joke
brothers.
sticks or whatever.
At Istvan,
Joe sticks
at
or
Calth.
low sticks.
I understand.
And that's what
Titus.
we burning.
No, my lord, you do not. It means that honest Fafner is too determined not to fail.
The fuck is this?
He will jump at the slightest thing, the merest doubt. He will err on the side of caution because
Well, I
the
just want to
alternative
say
failure is too grim to bear.
everybody owes
He
me a
and
little
his
bit of
men are a
money.
risk
God
to
damn it.
you because they
I'm
would
coming
rather
to collect,
strike
too.
at you in error than allow the slightest possibility
What is
of
this,
your
like
disloyalty.
the rat
I have
face?
nothing to hide, Gilliman said. Do you not?
Yeah,
Asked Praetor boldly.
angelic.
What about me? What about the librarius? We have learned that the wolves were unleashed on Prospero because your brother defied the edict of Nicaea. You do the same. Fafner is looking for the slightest sign, and I am it. I am proof of your heresy.
Damn, I feel like I'm a GTA character. Somebody
precisely
finna shoot
the
me with one of them
witched
rocket
warcraft
launchers.
they have been told to hunt for.
Damn.
Your
Yeah,
counsel
this is like when you finna get hit with, on the old GTA, GTA 3, I think. This is the little box that pop up when you finna hit a motherfucker with the rocket launcher. Fuck
That's
that.
why I want them where I can
It's
see.
like I got a target on me.
You take liberties with your
Degenerated
own
Eldar.
safety,
Yeah,
Lord.
little boy looked
Learn
fucked up, didn't he?
Not now, Newton.
Wow.
You are everything, my lord, and you cannot be everything. The only Primarch, the only son, the only loyal son you know yet lives. Newton began to count the rolls off on her fingertips. You are Lord of Ultramar, King of this world, Master of the 500, Commander of the 13th Legion Ultramarines, last champion of the
Which
Imperium.
anime?
You are also the Emperor's proxy and protector of the throne. Like the word or not, you will be a regent. You are his subject and possibly his heir. You may indeed, by default, be emperor already.
I don't know who that one is.
I will have my say, Lord of McCraig, the old woman protested. You cannot be all of these things. You are too valuable to risk. Let others command the forces. Let the tetrarchs do that. Let others do the dirty work. Delegate. Formally appoint commanders from the forces you are assembling. As a figurehead alone, you are too important. If fate overcomes you, the Imperium is most surely done. Gilliman looked at Praetor. Tell Mamselle Newton what I am thinking, Praetor, he said. My lord is thinking that he does not wish to call himself regent. If he is building what amounts to a new imperium, it would be unseemly to place himself on the throne. Newton snorted. Tell my beloved lord that he may yet have to, if there is no other heir.
Like that.
That would make me no
That's
more
cool.
loyal than Horus Lupercal, said Gilligan.
Shine like
I
diamonds,
will not
son.
countenance it.
Yeah, that's dope for a rap
He saw that
video.
Plato was looking at him. What, Titus? Something else?
Yeah, I'm in all of that. I chill with all the cats, but let's get on for
No, my
that.
lord.
On the rap. My team Don
Figures
Monster, armor black,
approached
strap
through
with
the
guns,
broad
bombs, and
hall,
condiments, corner stores,
flanked by
freestyle, saying we want to
ultramarines,
rap.
artificers
Speedballers pat the street while we
Valentus
speak
Dolo
off the tap.
approached.
Meanwhile, these queens play with King
Dolor was
Kong
one of
cats.
the four tetrarchs of Ultramar,
Yeah.
the four princes who
That would be
ruled the
dope for a
master
video.
worlds of the fiefdoms that made up the realm, and whose rank was second only to Gilliman's. Dolor's fiefdom was Occluder. He was a giant, and his master-crafted, modified Mark III plate was painted in the Ultramarines livery, reversed, blue for white,
Yeah, that
and
doesn't
white
work.
for blue.
No.
Valentus,
Oh
said
shit,
Gilliman,
they're like dude off of
present
Dragon
me
Ball
with good
Z,
news, and
the
save me
Dora,
from my
the Dora,
chamberlain's
the
relentless nagging.
Data, some shit like that
Dolor
off Dragon
looked
Ball
down at
Z.
the slender old woman.
He's the devil.
My good and distinguished friend, Mamselle Newton, is
Yeah.
very small, Lord, he said. I do not know how she could ever be very bothersome. Flies are small, Newton snapped. Ticks, they are also small.
Yeah,
Ticks get plucked out and squashed, said Gilliman. Flies are swatted. Your point, ma'am. I find myself temporarily without one, Lord, said Newton. I do bring good news, Lord.
That gives me a
said
double
Dolor.
chin, though. I
I
ain't
knew
got
you'd
no
want to
double chin.
communicate
This shit.
directly.
I'm
A
like,
ship
I'm
has
fat.
put in.
I like
A
old
pitiful
fat
thing has
dude to
limped
listen
all the way from
to
Cal,
Levert,
carrying
Gerald
the
Levert,
wounded and the
and
weary.
yeah, girl.
A sergeant
You let me
called
go and
Neal
get
is
that no,
aboard
baby
and
girl.
commends himself
Yeah, I
to
look
your
like I'm
lordship.
chunky or something.
Gilliman smiled. And it's Theo. He made a practical choice to remain committed to the underworld war. It will be good to see him. Have him go to the
that's
residency
nice.
so
I
that we
like
can
that.
talk in
That's
private.
it.
It's
Yeah,
been
it's
a long
grainy,
time
that's
since
gritty.
he was
Yeah, I
so
like that
steadfast
shit.
by
It's
my
like a
side
rapper
at
behind a
Cal.
glass wall or something.
I will instruct him so.
Dropping
said Dolor,
bars,
with a
stopping
courteous
cars,
head bow.
moving
Is
forward.
something
We never
wrong,
stop.
brother
Shot block,
Titus?
cock block.
Plato had suddenly winced and
I
steadied
like
himself
that.
against
That's like
the
off
wall
the
with one hand.
off the
With his
ice
other hand,
wall
he
or something,
clasped
man.
his forehead.
Yeah, that's fresh. I like
Something,
this one.
he
AI.
began.
That's the name
There
of
was a
that.
supersonic bang that shook the windows of the
Yeah,
hall
this shit's
and made
grimy
someone
looking
present
right here.
cry out. Looking up through the
So I
tall
need to come back
panes,
some of these.
Gilliman saw a streak of fire stride
bars.
down the sky.
Oh, that's
For a
fucking
stricken
sick.
moment, he thought of Calth, of the
Yeah, I like
Campanile,
that.
of missiles raining down.
It's not bright though.
But this looked more like a meteorite,
How to
an
get close?
object
Oh, how to get
plunging
light?
through the atmosphere. Others in the hall had hurried to the windows to see. A bad star, one of the wolves spat. An omen star. A broom star, snarled another. Maleficarum. The fireball was not large. Gilliman could see that. It fell straight down and disappeared behind the towers of the civitas. There was no explosion, no sunburst of a warhead. Dolor was already checking a data slate. Reports of an impact, my lord, in the labouring habs of the southern suburbs. Site is just north of the Octagon Fortress in Anomedim. Take charge of this, Gilliman told him. Find out what it was. Find out how in the name of the throne it passed through our orbital screen and detector grid. And someone check there aren't more of them incoming. At once, Lord, said Dolor. Report to me directly when you have anything, Gilliman snapped. He turned to look at the room. All eyes were on him. All the visitors. Wolves,
it's kind of
fists,
creepy
hands,
as fuck.
scars, salamanders.
Yeah, what's up, guys?
Find them accommodation in the garrison.
Kid.
See to their
Archmagos,
needs,
biologists.
and begin
I'm
to
trapped
assign
in the
them
warp
duties.
again. Somebody help me. It's like the
Form them
laughing
into
god is
companies,
protecting me,
according
though.
to their strengths.
Or so there's
Let us
one.
make an army.
What was that?
I'll be in the residency, he said. His bodyguard made to follow him. Stand down, he said. I go to speak with Chapter 5. He that has returned. Go and catch a falling star. Get with child a mandrake root. Tell me where all past years are, or who cleft the devil's foot. unknown song of Terran origin. Circa
Yeah,
NBT.
Harlequins. That's why I couldn't think of the damn name.
Smoke
I was trying to think of that
rose above the
motherfucker's
roof
name
lines
because
of the southern
the
city
laughing guy's
district of
name is
Anami in a grey
it's not
horse tail.
easy. You
Alarms
might
are
know
still
it,
sounding,
man.
and city watch divisions
He
have
got a
moved
crazy
in
name.
to
It's hard to
isolate
say
the
too.
area
It's like
and hold back
Kisserax or
residents and
something.
laborers from the fabricatories
Forgot
who
what
had
his
gone out
name
onto the
is.
streets
Something
to cook.
Kazaraka,
Dolor's lifter flew
some
along the
shit.
broad colonnades and boulevards of Straco above the moving lines of ground traffic and beneath the sweeping arches of bridge spans. At Larnis Gate, where Straco Deem became Anomi Deem, the traffic circulation was blocked. A warhound titan stood watch on the grassy field by the Illyrian monument, and another strutted with a muscular, crow-like walk across the upper pavement to take up position behind the fabrication plants along
Oh, I guess I
Square.
did know it then. Damn, I was close. I said
Dolor's
Chisarac or
pilots keyed the authority
Kigarac or
code,
something.
and the sentry warhound tracked the lifter with its weapons for a second before acknowledging the Tetrarch's right to proceed. In the restricted area around the impact site, the streets were empty except for rescue and emergency teams. A major fire sparked by the impact had half gutted the old Antimon machine works, the smoke from it staining the sky. "Not a warhead?" asked Dolor, looking at the scene. His equerry, an ultramarines captain called Casimir, was monitoring the information feed on a battle-grade data slate. "No, Tetrarch, not a warhead. Very little metallic registering in the analysis of its downtrack, and it was small too," he added. "It set the machine works ablaze." "It probably ruptured something flammable. It went down through the roof at the northern end and then punched through
It just
several
makes me
stories.
think of beer.
Crews are trying to get to it." "How did it get past the damned grid?" asked Dolor. "In the name of the throne, this is the most fortified and sky-watched world in the quadrant." "I can't answer that, Tetrarch," Casimir replied. "The data is incomplete. There is no trace of it prior to the point of atmospheric entry. I'll keep working on it, but there is no trace of any in-system plot, not even a cloaked one." Dolor frowned. "So what? Did it just jump out of a ship in orbit?" Casimir laughed. "Nothing jumps out of a ship in orbit, Tetrarch. Not if it's going to fall like that." Dolor looked at the pilot. "Set us down. Over there." The moment the lander had settled, Dolor punched the ramp hatch key and exited. His immense armored boots crunched across a rock-reeked quadrangle covered in glass and ceramic fragments from the machine shop's blown-out windows. 6-legged Mechanicum bulk servitors were firefighting in the steaming ruins of the fabricatory shed's western end, blasting retardant foam from shoulder mounts. 2 of them scuttled past the Tetrarch as he approached. They were heading back to the carrier parked in the street to refill their foam reservoirs.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Figures came to meet Dolor. Some were ultramarines, others were regular humans from the city watch and district Medicaid. They all snapped to attention. "Who has authority here?" Dolor asked. "We have the zone secured, Lord Tetrarch," said the leading ultramarine, his bolt gun mag-clamped to his chest plate. "But Consul Forge has jurisdiction." Forge stepped forward. He was a solemn, dark-haired man in suit and mantle. He made the sign of the Aquila. "Tetrarch," he said, and nodded. "The Primarch personally sent me to oversee," said Dolor. "Report, please." "We've controlled the fires and accounted for all personnel," said Forge. "Some injuries, but no fatalities. All the damage you see is due to kinetic impact and collateral." "And the object?" "We've located it by scan. It's gone down about 6 floors into the sub-basement, or possibly the sanitation system."
"I ain't got nothing to say to nobody. I'm Sly Marble."
"What is it?"
"I don't
"We
talk."
haven't cut down to it yet, my lord. A lot of machine shop structure fell
it's
into the
like
impact
Sly Marble
after the
too.
strike." "I want to see," said Dolor. Forsh nodded and beckoned for him to follow. Gilliman walked alone along the private hallways of the residency, avoiding the public spaces. These quiet corridors, lined in marble and pale wood, had often hosted Conal, pacing for no purpose other than to think. How much of a battle king's life, Gilliman wondered, was spent in whirring contemplation, compared to the proportion spent in actual
That's
battle.
all right, I guess. It's a little
Was that
color
Horus's
filter.
failing? Named as War Master, did Horus take that title
Another
too
one with the
literally
horns.
and allow himself to be inflamed past reason by a choleric humor until he was full of violent urges and thus vulnerable to the poisons of the warp? What was it the wolves had called it? Maleficarum? Gilliman had always believed that the true purpose of a warlord, or a battle king, or a war master was not to wage war, but to
Damn,
prevent
boy,
it.
that's a big ass
War
head
should
right
not
there.
be the natural
Like a
state of
servitor,
life.
man.
It should be resorted
It's
to
fucking like
only when
R2D2
all
in this
other agencies
motherfucker. I'm
fail.
a servitor
But
moving
when
around.
war became the only means, a war master
Yeah, that's
or a
fucked
battle
up.
king had to be capable of prosecuting it to
Yeah.
crushing compliance.
The head stuck
In
in a
Horus,
jar.
Gilliman had always felt there was an ugly propensity to love war for war's sake. Was that the human flaw that had led to this calamity? The eyes of past leaders watched him from gilded frames as he passed portraits of consuls and battle kings. How had they
yeah, I seen
managed
that
that
one.
balance? What personal
Yeah.
struggles of conscience had they endured to keep society safe from its enemies, yet unsullied by war?
Superstar. You're a superstar.
How would he,
baby.
Rabute Gilliman, fare
Yeah, that's
when
crazy.
that feat of balance became his to master? He reached the private entrance into the residency. The huge pairs of outer and inner doors closed automatically behind him, their hisses sealing him in his private realm. He paused for a moment in the high chamber and glanced out of great windows at the single new star
Madness.
shining in the troubled golden sky, and the wisp of smoke rising from the cityscape in the south. He began unclasping his gauntlets while he scanned the data feed on the old Code Gestalt cogitator. There was no new information on the impact. He would wait for the Tetrarch's
God
report.
damn.
Newton had told him to delegate.
That's fucked up.
Dolor was more than competent. A chime alerted him to the arrival of his visitor.
Yeah,
Gilliman
this
put
is
aside the
insane.
one gauntlet he had unbuckled and keyed the high chamber's public doors to open.
That's pretty
An
cool.
ultramarine sergeant with a
Ain't put no
red
damn
helmet
makeup on me,
entered
didn't
saluted.
I? That's
His
pretty
armor
cool.
was well maintained,
I
but
like the
worn
Naruto
from
shit
months
though,
of
right
toil
there.
and
Like I
warfare.
got the fucking
Gilliman
nine
could barely
tail
make out the
Naruto
unit
shit.
insignia. A blade had left a cut down
Yeah, it's
to bare
crazy.
metal
I like
across
it,
the
though.
red visor. On the right pauldron, there was a scouring mark, undoubtedly the trace of a flamer's
Dark
touch.
though, unless I got up
Gilliman
bright.
noticed all such minuscule details in one glance. Even from the Space Marine's bearing, he could read much. Thiel had always been a confident, almost reckless warrior, but now he seemed subdued and unsure of himself. The unremitting intensity of the Calth War had fused him into a state of constant readiness, a perpetual expectation of threat that even the downtime voyaging back to the crag had not diminished. Thiel's hand, subconsciously conditioned, never strayed far from the butt of his clamped weapon, as though he believed he might be ambushed at any second. It was chastening to see a man so changed, so imprisoned by tension.
Soldier boy.
"You'll keep the armorers busy
Interesting.
bringing that plate back to inspection standard," Gilliman said, as lightly as he could. "I trust my service has been worth every scuff and scratch, Lord," said the sergeant.
So
Gilliman
every time
smiled.
I talk,
He held out his bared right hand.
hello.
The warrior hesitated,
Is
then took it.
Yeah,
"Good to see you, Aeonid.
yeah, they snapped.
Good to see you indeed. Come, bring me news of Calth, and forget this formality for a moment. Unclasp that helm. I'll send for wine or amasec, perhaps." "There is no need, my lord." "There's every need, Sergeant Thiel. I want to spend some time in conversation with a man who has been devotedly practical since I last saw him. There's too much theoretical here on the crag. I've seen plenty of evidence to the contrary, my lord. The crag was always a defended world, a capital world, but such defenses we saw as we came into orbital space. Security is preeminent, Thiel. Now sit and remove that helm and talk to me." Thiel hesitated. "With your permission, my lord, I brought battle brothers I would like you to meet with me." "Indeed. They served as my squad in the Underworld War these past 8 months. I owe every one of them my life. If it's stories you want, they have plenty to tell, and I would appreciate it very much if you honored them with a little of your time. They are loyal brothers.
12:13.
They are with you.
Yeah, it got an hour and
went without
29, man. I'm
reacting
probably
to
finna crash it out.
Bring them in, Theo.
Yeah, man.
That's a signal from the
I might hop back on
subject.
tomorrow or something. Like I say, it's supposed to not get any better tomorrow, so I'm probably gonna be stuck at the house. So I'll probably hop back online tomorrow.
Unit
But yeah, man, I'll catch you
marks
later, man.
were
I'm finna
virtually illegible on
hop
all
off of here.
They all exhibited the same
And,
quiet
My
intensity.
filter stuck on here.
So much that
I'm
it
talking with these
seemed
fucking
like
shades on.
timidity,
But
as
yeah,
if they
man,
were
let me get up
afraid
out of here.
entering such a bright,
Y'all take it
luxurious,
easy, be
peaceful
safe,
environment,
peace out.
or afraid at least of disgracing it with their worn, imperfect armor. Gilliman sighed quietly. What appeared to be to